Hello, my name is Nick von Sanden from the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. I'm here today to talk about improving interagency data sharing through linkage spine interoperability. Before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge the sponsors of this conference, the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare, the PHRN, SANT Data Link, and the silver sponsors, ICES, the University of Calgary, and the bronze sponsors, the University of South Australia and the University of Western Australia. Linkage of federal government data in Australia is conducted mainly through a small number of accredited integrating authorities, of which AIHW is one. Different AIAs can be used to link different types of data. And this is particularly useful because there are gains from AIAs specialising in handling different types of data. For example, the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare specialises in handling person-centred data and linking that sort of data. Linking across AIAs, especially if multiple AIAs are involved, has proven to be quite inefficient in practice. For example, that might mean transferring identifiable data across multiple AIAs or from the supplier to multiple different AIAs. And in some cases, it's meant that the same data has had to be relinked twice, 3 times, or even 4 times by different AIAs to get different data involved for different projects. Furthermore, different AIAs operate under different conditions, so there are occasionally legislative constraints and expertise differences between the different AIAs as well. Based on all of this, we've seen that there's a big opportunity to streamline the linkage arrangements in Australia if we can increase the interoperability between AIAs to reduce some of these inefficiencies. Today I'm going to be talking about some methods and introducing what we developed under the Data Integration Partnerships for Australia, or DIPA, and this was a partnership project between the Australian Bureau of Statistics and the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare. Our project was to make linkage more efficient by improving interoperability between our agencies. And in this case, by interoperability, we're referring to the ability of our systems to exchange and make use of information and effectively and efficiently reuse the information that each agency has developed and designed separately. So in this case, with both of us being experienced AIAs, we started with a focus and looking at how we could get gains from increasing the interoperability of our linkage spines. By way of an introduction, a linkage spine is just a set of pointers between records that have already been linked. This gives us gains in terms of increasing efficiencies when you're linking data sets, because it enables us to maintain high quality established links. This is also a key central component of establishing enduring linkages, because these enduring spines give us the gains from maintaining an enduring linkage, in that it maintains the high quality linkage and allows us to spend extra resources to get this right the first time around to improve going forward. And there are 2 parts of enduring linkages. One part is enduring spine, which we're talking about today, but they're also a key component of making and maintaining the highest quality enduring linked content data assets as well. At the moment, and prior to this project starting and going forward as well, the linkage spines at ABS and AIHW are created and maintained separately by AIA separately. Looking at what we designed to develop AIHW and ABS interoperability in this case, it was just looking at whether we could develop and maintain a link between each unique person on our spine and those on the ABS spines. There are still constraints with this project. For example, merged data sets using ABS data still need to be analysed in the ABS data lab, so that's for the content data. But the idea is that if we can have a pointer to the ABS spine and the ABS can have a pointer to our AIHW spine, this will increase efficiency in accessing linked data sets across the agencies and reduce the need to relink data twice. Simplifying the whole process for data linkage will hopefully also increase the demand for data linkage, because creating some enduring data assets should noting that it will also potentially reduce the amount of data that needs to be transferred for linkage. So here's a diagram describing how this works in practice. If you'll note, there is one-way arrow in the middle there with the anonymized content only allowed to flow from AIHW to ABS at the moment. And that reflects the legislative constraint that we're working with at the moment, where data that is linked to ABS data cannot leave the ABS data lab or the ABS premises. However, the interoperability requests can go both ways. So if the ABS wants to link data that is linked to its spine to data that is linked to the AIHW spine, a request can be sent through to ask for the correct pointers, which would mean that the ABS wouldn't need to relink this data separately. In this way, instead of having two completely separate linkage spines, we have a linkage spine, and through a set of common data, we're able to point to records in the ABS spine as well, reducing the need to link twice. To demonstrate and test how this would work in practice, we set up an example project under DIPA. So AIHW and ABS conducted a special pilot project with the Victorian Department of Health and Human Services. This was a high priority project and high profile and a major undertaking, developing governance methods and technical infrastructure that would eventually be used for interoperability, but would also produce high quality results that would be used to drive policy research. The goal was to combine Victorian hospital data with the ABS's enduring data asset, the Multi-Agency Data Integration Project, also known as MADIP. And why this was a good candidate for interoperability was because the AIHW had already linked the Victorian hospitals data to the Medicare Consumer Directory on our end, and the ABS on their end had already linked the Medicare Consumer Directory to MADIP. That meant that if they had directly linked the Victorian hospitals data to MADIP, it would be repeating effectively a linkage that had already been done at AIHW. So by using this interoperability, we can show and demonstrate how to do the most efficient use of linkage resources to get the desired outcome. And this is the whole point of the interoperable spines. By making our spines interoperable, there was no need to relink the data again from scratch. So essentially, in practice, by going through the interoperable spine, the Victorian linkage map was linked to the ABS spine via the AIHW linkage spine. And no names and addresses or identifiable information were passed through. AIHW only needed to pass the anonymized interoperable value to the ABS. In practice, this has actually given us some very positive and useful results. So the output data from this project informed a major policy relevant project, the Community Health Future Directions project run by VicDHHS. In terms of the results, the two spines, when used in this project to assess the interoperability, actually turned out to have a very high degree of interoperability. So roughly 97.5% of the AIHW spine and 99.1% of the ABS MCD data extract were in common. And that meant that there was a very high degree of overlap and a very high degree of interoperability when they're assessed of the two spines. Mind you, we can see there are some differences, and those differences were due to the different scopes, for example, time periods and deduplication methods that were used. The results were then subsequently analysed in the ABS Data Lab, and they were looking at almost 200,000 records in this space. All in all, it was a successful demonstration of interoperable linkage between our two agencies and has shown great efficiencies, which we have both committed to maintain going forward, even in the post-DIPA world. If you have any comments or questions, I'd be happy to take them. My contact details are on the slide, and please feel free to contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.